Hey guys, Magnus Robber here. And it's been a while since we've done this, but of course, we are back to ranking the Walking Dead episodes. Now, I finished my rewatch of season 9. Like I said, I always try to preface this at the start. All these ratings are based on a recent rewatch. I've not just pulled these numbers out my ass. I've not just randomly gone on the Wikipedia page and been like, oh yeah, that episode was good. I've actually watched them. I've let it sit with me for a day, and then I've decided to give it a ranking. And I'm not just binge watching either, because I think the problem with binge watching is you get I think it obscures your view of different things, because you just remember the good scenes. And if an episode has a really great scene, but the rest of the episode's a bit slow, you kind of base it on that one scene. And I don't know if I like that. I don't like that unless the scene everything built up to that scene, so the slowness was paid off, right? So yeah, that's sort of how I like to review things. If you review things differently, that's cool. We can disagree about it and still be friends. So today we're going to be ranking both season 8 and season 9, and we'll come back later to do 10 and 11. I'll probably do 10 and 11 separately just because they have so many episodes. I don't think I could do both of them in one video. And then we'll have the ultimate ranking every episode tier list series, I guess. And I might do Fear. I have been watching Fear as well, so if you'd like to see one on Fear the Walking Dead, please let me know in the comments below. Anyway, let's get into it. So starting off, we have Mercy, which of course is a season 8 episode, the premiere of season 8 in fact. Now, what do I give this one? Now personally, I think this premiere is pretty weak. I'm not a fan of how much it jumps around. We start with a flash forward to Rick, and then we're jumping around to the different characters, and there's cheery music, or not even cheery music. It's it feels a bit silly, I guess. And we have all these speeches. Rick gives a speech, then the King gives a speech, then Maggie gives a speech, and it's a bit too much, I feel. And ultimately, all we get, all that really happens in the story is, they shoot some windows of the sanctuary and they block them in. And I feel like the premiere just wasn't enough. It felt and I like all the callbacks to season 1 and episode 1, with the Carl. Obviously, Carl, they reshoot the scene with Rick. I mean, that's cool, but it's kind of gimmicky, if you get what I mean. It doesn't make the episode. And I find the episode a little boring, to be honest. I think it just took too long to get into it. And there's some really stupid scenes, Negan comes out to give a talk to Rick, whereas the whole time Rick's been there's only one person who needs to die, just one, it's just Negan. And yet, Negan comes out and Rick lets him do a whole fucking speech, and then he starts name calling all the lieutenants. It's just so cringe and it's so silly. As soon as Negan comes out of cover completely, Rick should just turn to everyone and go, right, on 5, on my mark, we all shoot Negan in the head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bang, 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 bang. Negan's fucked, right? Even if Rick misses, someone's not gonna miss, right? Negan's dead. Cool. We're over with the war. That is infuriating. And some of the cuts to commercial as well, really break up the episode. It's just such a messy premiere, I feel. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's a 5. And I think a 5 is being generous. And I'm only giving it a 5 and not anything lower, because I do generally like some of the callback stuff, and I think some of it's okay. Now, episode 2, The Damned. Now, this episode for me is the first 4 of season 2. Now, there's multiple reasons why I kind of hate this episode. We can let's get into it. So first off, this episode is kind of the definition of action without plot. We start off with an Alexandrian drive-by where they're just shooting all the saviors and they kill them all, cool. And then we go to another one at the satellite outpost where they're killing all the saviors and then they capture a bunch, cool. And then we have another outpost where Carol and Ezekiel are, they're stunned and they're running after, trying to kill another dude who's ran off, right? A savior who's ran off, so they're attacking another outpost. So we're just watching them attack 3 outposts, and that's kind of the whole episode, really. And then Rick and Daryl kind of infiltrate this one thing. I like the scene with the Gracie's dad. I felt that was pretty tragic. How Rick kills that guy's dad. Oh, kills Gracie's dad even. And then, of course, Morales shows up fucking randomly out of nowhere at the end of the episode. There's also an impressive amount of super close-ups to people's faces. generally dog shit. Like what was the purpose of that? Why? Like it's artsy for the sake of it, and it just kind of comes off as like really pretentious. So I really don't like this episode. It's got a cool few action scenes, and that's about it. That's all I can really give it. But even some of the action just feels so staged. It doesn't feel like raw. It feels like a TV action scene. And The Walking Dead does have some really good action scenes here and there. This one, though, all the ones in this episode were kind of dog poo. So, yeah, not a fan of The Damned. That Morales cameo did not save it. Oh my god, what will happen to Morales in the next episode, which is called Monsters? Morales is dead. Now, surprisingly, I'm giving this one a 5. Okay, I like this one a little bit more. Now, I think the one great sort of saving grace with this episode was Eric's death. I thought it was done really well, actually, for the most part. Although it is a bit like when he like walks off and Scott's like, "No, Aaron, you can't get him." That was a bit silly, but well, actually, I guess it kind of makes sense because he's going towards a herd. But whatever. The Morales stuff just turned out to be absolutely pointless. I mean, they could have made something interesting with that, having this guy who knew Rick early on, but they pretty much disposed of him straight away. It was literally just fulfilling a fucking meme, and it was not good. You have the Outpost stuff. Obviously, they bring the saviors, so they're bringing the saviors to the hilltop, and Morgan goes a little crazy. The Jesus and Morgan fight just feels really staged. I really hate that fight. Generally, dog poo. What else do you have? Rick and Daryl getting pinned down, and they shoot some saviors, and then Daryl kills a surrendering savior, and you have the people bringing stuff back to the hostages back to the hilltop. Who cares? And then, yeah. Anyway, and at the end of the episode, sorry, they of course, all of Ezekiel's people get killed. Pretty cool ending though. So there's some good stuff in there, but like a lot of shit in there as well. Like I don't really care for the hostage story arc. I found that just to be kind of fillery, and I wasn't a fan of that. Some more action. But yeah, there was some good stuff in there. I don't like the Jesus and Morgan fight, like I said. So there's definitely some poopy stuff in there. Now we got Some Guy. Now I generally think this is probably the best episode of season 8. I'm actually going to give this one a 7. Ooh, crazy. Now, the reason why I like this episode is, there's some action, there's some tragedy, but there's actually a coherent plot in this episode. And a character arc for an interesting character, and of course that being Ezekiel. Now this episode pretty much mostly takes place with Ezekiel, with a little bit of a Rick and Daryl cameo mixed in. But essentially, obviously after all of Ezekiel's people has been killed, he is kind of left distraught, and he begins to break down. This facade that he puts to his people begins to crack. And, he loses, what's his name? Alvaro and Daniel and all these, like, loyal guys and these cool side characters I think were pretty well defined beforehand. They are just, like, side characters. They're nothing, like, profoundly amazing. But, yeah. And then, of course, it's just him and Jerry. Oh, he gets kidnapped by that Gunther guy, that Savior guy. And then it's him and Jerry fighting to the bitter end. And you have some stuff with Carol. Some of the Carol stuff's a little icky, like her hiding in the roof, like I don't know, it's like we need another badass Carol moment, here we go. And also the chase scene where Rick and Daryl chase those guys with the guns is kind of goofy. It's so goofy, but I can kind of excuse all of that and still give it a 7, because they actually give like a really solid character arc for Ezekiel. And of course the scene where Shiva gets killed and eaten by the zombies, he finally breaks, I'm not your king, no I'm not your king, it's a good fucking scene. And the final scene, of course, how they open the episode with him surrounded by his people, and then like they're all dead, and then he returns to the kingdom and he just has no words for his people, and he just goes back to his room. I think that scene's fucking good. It's really good. And I think it's like one of the gem. It's not like an amazing episode, don't get me wrong. It's not up there. But it's a really solid episode in a really terrible season. So, I like to give Some Guy some praise. I do think it's pretty good. Although there is some cheese in there and some kind of generally wacky ass scenes. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. There is definitely it's the best part, or probably one of the best episodes of season. I do have a few other 7s in here, but it's one of the best episodes anyway. Now, episode 5. This is called The Big Scary You. What a dreadful title name. Anyway, I give this one a 5 out of 10. So, what is the plot of this episode? So, of course, we get a closer look at Negan and Gabriel. Oh, we go back to that, which they left you on the cliffhanger in episode 1. Something I forgot to mention, but oh, what's going to happen here? It takes forever to get to it. Another reason why I don't like season 8 is generally because they split up all these plot lines a bit too much. Like, I feel like we probably should have... Leaving it for an episode, fine, but leaving it all the way till this episode is a bit nuts, in my opinion. So, of course, yeah. We also get the weird flashback of Gregory and Simon with the pancake thing. That was so random. Out of nowhere. Yeah, so and then we get the flashback, of course, with Gregory meeting Negan and, like, talking. Like, we didn't need that scene. What a pointless scene. We didn't need to see the meeting between Gregory and Negan. Like, why did we need to see that? So dumb. Anyway, Negan and Gabriel, of course, they have the little confession. They get out. Gabriel, of course, helps Negan. Negan helps Gabriel. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, the shit goes down in the sanctuary because there is no Negan, and the workers start striking and shit like that. You know, there are some interesting things in there, kind of seeing like the sanctuary begin to break down. I do kind of like some of that stuff, but yeah. And what else do you have? Rick going to the smelly garbage people. Awesome. We really need that. And the end of the episode, Gabriel has got the flu or some shit, and he's pretty sick. So, not a great episode. But there's some okay stuff in there. But I feel like, again, it's just so broken up. There's just not enough there to justify its entire existence to basically be, for the majority, a Gabriel and Negan story with, you know, some Sanctuary stuff on the side. I just don't... It feels like it's repeating mistakes from Season 7. So I'm generally not that big of a fan. Then we have The King, The Widow, and Rick. So this is... going down with Slabtown as a 3 out of 10. Not a great episode in any way, shape, or form. So, of course, God. Now, this episode, I was saying how they really need to split things up. And they do kind of do it in this episode, but it's like all the wrong scenes. So, of course, you have Rick going to the smelly garbage people, and they turn out to be traitors. They chuck him in a garbage thing in his underwear and start taking pictures of him. And then he has a silly, goofy fight with Jadis, and somehow, like, she just flips again. So dumb. You, of course, have Carol being like, Ezekiel, come on, fight. And he's like, no. You have the stuff at the hilltop. I do like the hilltop scene where Maggie puts Gregory in the cage. Does that happen in this episode, or have I mixed it up? Oh, who cares? You have Tara being like, yeah, we need to kill Dwight. We need to do something with the sanctuary. We need to do something else. All dumb. Carol obviously saves Henry. I mean, it's a fine. Oh wait, no, sorry. Carol doesn't save Henry in this one. I don't think. No, that's like much later on. It's just she's with him in the woods. Really silly. Yeah, Michonne and Rosita, their little side mission, sneaking off to the warehouse and then blowing up the Savior with the RPG in a fucking warehouse. Why would you blow up why would you fire an RPG in an enclosed space? What a dumb scene. Oh, and then Daryl just fucking spawns out of nowhere and like hits that truck, not knowing who's driving it, and he shoots the driver, not knowing, like, just some dog shit scenes. Awful. Oh god. And then Enid and Aaron pair off for some random ass reason, and they head off to fucking Oceanside. Ah, god, I'm missing so much of this episode, but it generally, oh god, the Carl and Sadiq scene, fucking cringe, where Sadiq's like, I kill the walkers to honor my mom, and then Carl's like, alright, let's do it. And then, of course, spoilers, Carl, of course, gets bitten, but we don't get that revealed quite yet. But what a dumb scene as well. Such a dumb way to kill a character off. So, yeah, this is a 3 out of 10. I feel like this one is generally pretty hated by the fandom, but I extra hate it. I extra hate it for many reasons. Just nothing really of substance, I feel, happens. And there's some generally dumb scenes. Like, all the stuff at the heaps is just dumb. I hate it all. Why would you ever trust those smelly people again? So then we got time for after. Ugh. these fucking title names are cringe in their own if I had to rank the titles, God, most of season 8 would be down here in the toilet. So time for after for a time. I'm gonna give this one a 5 out of 10. Ooh, not some great scores for season 8. I'm being fair though to the good episodes, I feel. Oh God, let me just quickly whip up my notes. So this episode, of course, you have the issue with the sanctuary and Eugene's being pressured to do stuff, and of course Dwight is actively trying to sabotage Eugene at the same time. You have the Gabriel getting sicker and stuff, and we have a little thing, and then Gabriel, of course, is talking to Eugene too. We have trying Eugene, don't be a smelly traitor, please. Then you of course have what have we got here? The busing hit us at the compound. Okay, yeah, more stuff with Eugene. Daryl, oh yeah, the stupid Daryl and fucking Rosita and Tara, where they're discussing their plan, and then they go in fucking circles, and then eventually Daryl rams the thing in the truck into the sanctuary, and just destroys Rick's plan. What a silly move that was, and feels completely out of character for Daryl. I just hate that, man. I hate that all. Generally, not a great episode. Some more annoying plot points, some more dreadful stuff. Oh, yeah, you also have Rick arriving with the smelly garbage people to the sanctuary, and they immediately dip, so who really cares about that story? Rick is being very dumb in this season too. Not a great episode. That's all I can say. Time for after. No, I don't want any time. I don't want it after. I just don't like the episode. Sorry. My humor's not great this currently. Okay, so we've got episode 8, which is how it's gotta be. Now, admittedly, although I hate the fact that they killed Carl, I feel like it'd be unfair to judge the episode solely on that one thing. Like I don't want to judge an episode solely on one great scene, I shouldn't judge an episode solely on one bad scene, because I think this episode does a lot right. I like the stuff with the grenade stuff. I even think the stuff where Maggie gets taken over and they kill what's his name, Neil. They kill the cameraman, and then later, of course, Maggie then fucking executes Dean. I thought that was a pretty good episode too, right? I sorry, a pretty good scene. I like that as a sequence of events. Yeah, so I like that stuff. I like the Carl stuff, like Carl actually standing up and becoming kind of leader, and giving that speech to Negan, kill me. The acting's a little dodgy here and there, but for the most part, it's a really good scene. Yeah, and also the stuff at the Kingdom. Although I will say the scene where Carol's like, Ezekiel, no, as he closes the door. Jesus, I feel like that's Melissa McBride's worst line delivery. Dreadful. So there is some corny stuff, there is some stuff that's not great, but generally I like the stuff at the Kingdom. I like the stuff with the Hilltop people getting obviously spared, and the killing Neil, and then obviously Maggie retaliating straight away, and I like all the stuff at Alexandria too. So yeah, the Carl reveal at the end is dreadful, and it was it is the worst plot point The Walking Dead has ever done. Killing Carl was just a huge mistake, and I don't even think they tried to fix it, and I think they did a decent job fixing it later on, obviously through Judith and through other characters, but for the most part, I will never defend that, and I think it was a dreadful decision, and no fan disagrees, and why they thought it would ever fly, I do not know. I don't know if it was because... I think it's because they wanted to not pay Chandler Riggs or something like that. I don't know what the real reason is. There's all this speculation, but it wouldn't surprise me if it came down to money. Now we got Honor. Now this episode kind of is heartbreaking. I think it is kind of well done at parts as well. I think Carl's death is drawn out a lot, and I think it was cheeky of them to do that, and that does hurt the episode, because it does feel like we've got an extra something minutes just to draw out Carl's death and make it very sad. But I do think a lot of those scenes were really well acted, sometimes really well shot, and fucking heartbreaking. So I felt emotion from it. I kind of hate it. I do hate it. I hate the fact they killed Carl, but I just want to give it a little bit of praise. I think the way that Carl died was shit, but his sort of last scenes, I think at the very least, were something. And then you have Carol and the Kingdom people saving Ezekiel, and Morgan ripping out the guts. Oh, fucking brutal scene. Some good gore there. And obviously Henry then kills Gavin. Pretty funny. Haha. Morgan like stalking Gavin like the Terminator as well was so kind of cool. Yeah. Oh, I don't like the dumbass Carl's visions. I think they're kind of poopy. I think this is like a lowest 6, by the way. I think it's creeping on a 5, but I felt like it deserved a 6 just for some of those really good emotional scenes, and also the stuff with the way that they contrast as well, like Carl's scenes with the Henry scenes. I like that. I like that a lot because it is kind of, yeah, it's a good parallel where like Morgan is all about violence and murder and killing, and that's kind of what Henry becomes, whereas Carl's kind of come to this realization that, you know, things can't be about killing and murder all the time. Although they did kind of 180 Carl's character arc, I feel, from season 7 to 8. But again, yeah, I hate all this stuff, but I do generally like a lot of things in this episode. Not enough to give it a higher score, but I will say it's a fucking low 6, very low 6. It's closer to a 5 than a 7, that is for sure. Now we've got the Lost and the Plunderers. So one thing I hate about this episode is the title cards. They just randomly, like out of nowhere, have these dumbass title cards to split up the episode. I don't care about the garbage people and Simon executing them after Negan explicitly said, kill one person, don't kill them all. And then Simon just, I don't know, like, it's not good writing. It's dreadful writing, really. Because, like, Simon doesn't do anything to cover it up, right? It's, like, the dumbest move ever. He's got all these guys participating in a massacre. How does he not think that Negan is going to find out? All these witnesses, the fact that he's murdered them all, of course. Yet, I know we later find out he didn't let Jadis live. But the fact that he thought Jadis was dead. But the fact that he starts shooting them all and doesn't instantly kill Jadis, and somehow lets her get away as well. I know that happens in there's like a flashback scene in a later episode showing Jadis getting away. That's dumb as well. I hate that shit too. How they do all these stupid flashbacks that jump all over the place and give us pointless scenes. But anyway, he lets Jadis get away, right? Enough so she can fake her death. And I know that happens later on, but whatever. I'm still blaming it this episode. And he massacres because it's just like, it doesn't make sense. He's not smart, but he's meant to. But he never came across as an idiot before. But suddenly they made him into an idiot. It would be like, I don't know, in a fucking film where the good guy says to someone, "Whatever you do, don't kill innocent people, okay? And you won't go to prison, Mr. Bad Guy." And Mr. Bad Guy kills some innocent people as soon as he leaves the house. Like, well, as soon as he's out the jail. And he leaves all the bodies there, and then he just walks away. And then the hero sees it, and he's like, oh, well, that guy's thick. He didn't even, like, try and cover it up. So that's my biggest issue, really. It's just, it's like a cool scene, I guess. Like, oh my god, he's massacring them all. But it feels so dumb at the same time. So you have all those stupid character title cards, obviously. Rick being like, what do you think Carl meant when he said those things? What do you think, Rick? I think it was pretty fucking obvious what Carl was saying. And also, he wrote a letter. Why don't you just read that? Yeah, dumb dialogue. Really dumb dialogue. What else do we have? God, it's trying to. There's so many egregious scenes in this episode. It's hard to name them all, I feel. Oh god, do we have some Negan stuff as well? Is there Negan? Oh yeah, there is Negan stuff. Him destroying the radio at the end like a weirdo, and Rick and Michonne go into the junkyard finding Jadis, and then she like grinds her people into mush. That was pretty brutal. Some funny scenes, some gore, nice gore, I guess. Rick just like abandoning Jadis is kind of funny though. I gotta give them props for that. That's a funny ass scene. Anyway, let's move on. We've done enough of that. Dead or Alive, or what a fucking stupid title name, but whatever. So I generally kind of love the Gabriel and Dr. Carson stuff. I think that is the saving grace of this episode. I think it's really solid, so I'm putting it as a 6 out of 10. because it's a good character arc for Gabriel. He goes on this mission with Carson thinking that, you know, faith and God is driving him and that God is behind him, and all these like silly things happen. Like they find keys. Obviously, Gabriel shoots a zombie being half blind and closing his eyes whilst firing, letting God take the gun, basically. All these silly things, but they make sense for the narrative, so I give them a pass. You know, when something thematically is justified, but maybe not logically justified, I'm more likely to give it a pass, and I gave all that stuff a pass. And of course, it's all fruitless in the end because Carson is killed and Gabriel's captured. Yeah, I think that's a solid-ass story. I like it. Now, why they take Gabriel's character from here isn't very interesting, but at the very least, I thought all that sort of story arc was pretty good. Then you have the swamp scenes where Daryl goes through the swamp and killing walkers. It feels like killing like a walker scene for the sake of it. Of course, Dwight runs away. Tara like tries to execute Dwight, even though like Daryl literally says, "Yeah, we might need him, by the way. Like we could still need him." So, but Tara then goes rogue and she starts trying to kill Dwight, and then Dwight gets away, and then she changes her mind. She says, "Oh, I don't know if I want to kill Dwight now. He seems like a decent guy. He led the Saviors away." So Dwight goes off and he rejoins the Saviors. It feels like we're just going backwards, moving back story arcs. You know, we're moving forward now with Dwight officially being on their side, but nope, we're back to it. He's back to the sanctuary. Why the fuck would Dwight ever go back to the sanctuary? At the very least, right? Maybe he gets the trusts of the Saviors real quick, and then he helps the group just murder them all. Maybe that is what he does, right? Not fucking go back to the sanctuary after you know that Laura saw you. Like, so dumb. Yeah. Although I guess he does ask about Laura being there, and they say, "Oh no, she's never showed up." But still, I think it's a bit silly. It's too risky, man. Too risky. Yeah, Alexandria eventually gets through. Of course, they arrive at the gates, and you have the sad scene of everyone crying, where, and then Maggie's a little nice to the prisoners. But yeah, I don't jam with a lot of the stuff in the episode, but I think at the very least all the Gabriel and Carson stuff is pretty good. I don't mind it, so I give it a fair score of a 6, which I think is very generous. Now, episode 12, I give this one a 5. It's called The Key. I think all the stuff with Georgie and that group is cringe as hell. Her group is cringe. It makes 0 sense that these people are still alive this many years, well, 2 years into the apocalypse. They go around in a fucking hippie van asking for records. So dumb. And in exchange, they give a book. We learn nothing really more about these people later on, so I feel like it's justified to rip the shit out of it. And it feels like a cringe kind of like girl empowerment where all the women are coming together to confront these women. And it feels a little bit forced as well. Oh, I forgot to mention Enid killing Grandma in Oceanside. That was really dumb. And then Aaron begins to stage a hunger strike. That happens in a different episode, but I've completely forgot about it, so who cares? It was a pretty forgettable story arc. Yeah, so didn't like all that. You have Rick then, of course, has a cringe little road rage moment, and he runs Negan off the road and chases him round and shoots at him, and obviously misses every shot. Really dumb. And then Simon and Dwight have a cringe moment where, like, yes, it's a mutiny, we'll take over, and they burn the car, and they go back and go, yeah, Negan's dead, oh well, now let's execute all the people at the hilltop, woo! And Simon just kind of goes into a bit of a stereotypical villain. Like, that was my problem with Simon. I liked Simon at first, I thought he was interesting, and then they just straight up change him into, like, a psychopath with no real motive, I feel. Like, he kills all the Oceanside people, I guess, just because, and then he wants to genocide all of the hilltop just because. So yeah, I'm not huge on Simon's character really, and I don't know. This episode was kind of boring, so it gets a 5. Not even boring, just more dumb scenes, really dumb scenes, and not moving the plot forward. Like, how does Rick going to shoot at Negan again, but missing and not doing anything, help the story? It doesn't. It doesn't really bring the story forward. And then, of course, it ends with Negan in a really terrible, like, really badly shot scene where Negan's in the car with Jadis and she's, like, got him at gunpoint while she's driving, and then she, like, smacks him around the head. Such a dumb scene. And how the fuck did Jadis get him? They never explain that. Where's our flashback to learn how Jadis caught Negan? Very jarring. Do not send us
a stray dog. So I will be fair to this episode. I like some of it. I do like some of it. So I give it a 6. Now, basically, most of this episode, of course, consists of the attack on the hilltop. Basically, Simon and Dwight and the Saviors attack the hilltop, and we, of course, have big battle. And the Saviors get defeated. They, of course, are forced to retreat. They head back, but a lot of them did the stabby stab with the gutted weapons. Now, one thing I have to point out is Simon wasn't planning to infect them. He was planning to completely wipe out the hilltop. That was his plan. He wanted to genocide the hilltop, kill every single one of them, right? He literally said we will expunge them in the previous episode. Yet in this episode, they're using the guts trick. Like, why the fuck would you not bother? Why would you not? I just don't bother with the guts trick. Just use the fucking gun. Because you don't give a shit about infecting them anymore. But whatever, it's still cool. Although the infection stuff does kind of not gel well with some of the earlier stuff. Of course, like Rick cuts his hand and gets like walker blood in his like fucking... Well, he cuts his hand on a blade that's been in a walker's like body, yet he doesn't get this infection. I do think they have like a line where they point out though that some people survived. I think that's a thing where like Daryl says that to Tara after Dwight obviously shoots Tara with a non-infected arrow. Whatever. So, yeah, basically, obviously, after the battle, a bunch of people die. Tobin dies, Rip, and some other people die, and they get infected, and there's extra bodies added to the pile when all these people begin to turn. And then they bury a lot of people. It's a pretty tragic episode. I like it. Yeah, overall. Oh, yeah, and the fucking hilltop hostages, savior hostages escape too. I don't like the back and forth, though, with Tara and Daryl were like, we should kill Dwight. And then Tara's like, no, don't kill Dwight. And then Daryl's now like, oh, no, we do need to kill him. He still killed your girlfriend. It's like, why are we going back and forth? Like, these two characters have the same, like, motivation and personality. It's so annoying. That's why I don't like Tara, especially in Season 8. I don't think she has nothing of value in Season 8 because Daryl has the same opinions as her, yet they keep flip-flopping with each other. It's so annoying. I can't stand Daryl in Season 8 either, by the way. It's not just a woman thing. Anyway, we have episode 14. And this one gets a 6. Still gotta mean something. Now, the stuff with Morgan and Rick obviously going after the Saviors and then brutally betraying them and like killing them, like stabbing them literally in the back after they agree to work together to kill the walkers. I like that scene. I think it's dark. It's morally bad. You know, it's probably the worst immoral thing Rick has done. Especially because a lot of those guys clearly were just... They weren't like all evil. A lot of them were like fairly innocent, I feel. They just kind of were in with a bad group, basically. That was fucking evil almost what Rick did. So I would say probably a little bit evil, yeah. You have all the dumb stuff with Jadis. This is where the flashback of Jadis is, where we find out how she got away with Simon. Why the fuck do we need that flashback? All the stuff with Jadis and Negan I don't care for. And the stupid helicopter. Cringe. Carol obviously goes after Henry, and I think this is the one where she finds Henry, I believe, right? And she saves Henry. Yeah. And it's kind of... I like that scene too. I think that's a pretty powerful scene. Because Carol's like forced. Because this whole time she's pretending like she doesn't give a fuck about Henry. I don't give a shit if you die, whatever. You'll get killed, who cares? But this clearly shows that she kind of does care for Henry. And it's good setup, obviously later on, where Carol, of course, adopts and... raises Henry. And then it ends with Rick about to read Carl's letter. I think there's some good, there's a good character arc here for Rick especially, and that's why I like this episode quite a bit. You know, Rick kind of goes in the whole murder jacket mode, and then after realizing what he's done, you know, it's a bit cringe. He looks in the mirror and sees the cracked mirror, like, oh, I'm a damaged man. The symbolism is a bit on the nose, but that is what forces him to read the letter. So then we have Worth. Is it called Worth? Not Wrath. I was trying to read it. 7 out of 10 I gave this one. I like a lot about this episode. The start with Rick reading Carl's letter, I thought that's pretty touching. You have Gregory meeting with Simon at the hilltop. Pretty funny scene. I am the juice. kind of funny scene. Cindy, all the stuff with Varen I don't care for. The Bullet Factory stuff, some of those scenes are pretty funny with Eugene. Now, I will say, they kidnap Eugene. Although it's funny he pukes on Rosita. They kidnap Eugene. And Daryl, the expert tracker, the guy we've been told can literally like track fucking like squirrels' movements in the woods, right? He's like an expert tracker. It's like his most defining trait throughout every season. Somehow doesn't know that Eugene, a pretty fucking bulky guy, runs and hides in the ash, and he somehow hides within 5 seconds. And Daryl, the expert tracker, I think he literally looks where Eugene's hiding and doesn't notice it. Bullshit. Alright, Eugene was not getting away. Dumb scene. Very comical. Kind of hate that. But I like the stuff. I like the mutiny stuff and how Dwight betrays Simon. I thought that was pretty interesting. Only, of course, for Laura to be revealed to have been back, and Dwight's instantly in the shit. So that stuff was okay. And I think Eugene's like character arc in this episode too. Obviously, it's presented like he's still on board with the Saviors, but ultimately, when Rosita roasts him and is like, you're fucking weak, you're pathetic, the only reason you're alive is because you lied. And, you know, that sort of roasting she gives him, of course, is the thing that finally turns him against the Saviors. Added with Gabriel's ineptitude with the bullets earlier on, and the sort of scene where he's like, time to do something useful for our pathetic lives. I like that. There is some good stuff here. Still some cringe. The Simon Negan fight, it's a bit wonky. I'm not a huge fan of that scene. It just feels they cut away too much, and I don't know. I'm not huge on that fight. I feel like it was choreographed a bit weak. But yeah, I still give it a 7. I think I'm being fair, but it's more because I really like some of the Eugene stuff. Although there's some dumb scenes, don't get me wrong, and I like some of the stuff at the start with Rick reading the letter and all that. Now we have Raph. Now ultimately, I think I'm being very fair to this episode, as fair as I can, and I'm giving it a 7. Now, let's get some of the bad out of the way. The final battle ultimately comes down to Rick and Negan running around a fucking tree, okay? That's ultimately what the final battle is. Kind of bad. However, I like some stuff in this episode, okay? I like the breakdown of Rick, the scene where Maggie's like, no, you Glenn, no! That's really powerful. Rick's sort of final speech, I think, is the best speech in the season, and actually justified for him just to babble on. The faulty bullets, although I think from some standpoint, it is a bit, when you think about it, like, Eugene risks this. The fact that Eugene risks this is kind of stupid, because he's betting on the fact that not only, like, when the Saviors are heading towards the field, they're not going to shoot some zombies along the way. A Savior is not going to test a bullet, and obviously Negan tests the one gun, the one revolver, but bullets are going to be different for different guns. I'm not wrong in saying that, right? I feel like some bullets are going to have to be different for different guns. I mean, I don't know guns that well, but I feel like that's a thing, right? So they wouldn't test like guns in the AK or guns in like the M4 or guns in the fucking, I don't know, pistol. They only test the ones in the revolver, which I think are shell, right? They're like different because they don't eject cartridges. So why would they not check all the guns first? That feels a little silly. So there are some dumb stuff there, but I'm willing to look. It's not egregious to the point where I think it ruins the episode for me, I guess, is the only thing I can come down to. There are some very good scenes in there, the final scene especially, and I think some of the scenes kind of wrapping up the season are pretty good too, like Alden and Maggie, you know, and Alden's like, can I work here? Now, they do kind of ruin the scene where Alden's like, any of you guys with, with Tara? Because I'm with Tara. Let's fight the fucking Saviors. And Alden's like ready to fight his former Saviors. Fucking, it's a really good scene. And it's ruined by all the fucking Oceanside single ladies coming and stealing it from them and firebombing it. And that was the contribution that the Oceanside gave. They stole a really powerful scene from Alden and the defected Saviors. That's all they contributed this season. The Oceanside is the most pointless fucking community. It's even more pointless than the trash people, because at the very least the trash people had a bigger impact on the plot, although they're probably more annoying. So yeah, some dumb stuff in the episode, but I mean, it's so nice to it because I like a lot of the scenes in this episode. I feel are very powerful, especially like the Rick breaking down by the tree, the saving moment, all of that. I think is very good. Okay, so and also Rosita punching Eugene. I love that scene. So I give it a 7. It's a low 7. Do not get me wrong. It's closer to a 6 than an 8. Definitely. It's nowhere near an 8, actually. But I want to give it a 7 regardless. I feel like it deserves it. So that is Season 8. And Season 8 got an average score of 5.5, which is the lowest rating any season has got thus far. I will eventually rank all the seasons based on the average score that I gave every episode, and it will be the ultimate ranking ever. Now, Season 3 is actually ranked quite high, which surprised me at first, but I do feel like Season 3 is a season where it's like, a bit of a tangent here. Season 3 is a season where nothing was amazing, but everything wasn't like bad. It wasn't dreadful. And I know some people disagree because they hate Season 3, but my view on Season 3 is Glenn Mazzara threw a lot of shit at the wall, and somehow some of it stuck. That's kind of how I view Season 3. Yeah. Some of the ways he went about writing was kind of bad, but I think ultimately there were some really good stories there. But anyway, let's move on to Season 9. Now, the premiere, I give a 7. Now, there is some dumb stuff in this premiere, just like there is in these episodes. The whole getting the wagon down the stairs along the super fragile glass is kind of silly. But the fact that the glass is fragile to begin with is dumb as hell. I mean, this is literally in a museum where people are walking over it nonstop. Crowds of people, not just some people, crowds of people would be walking over this all day. And you're telling me this glass is built to crack, like somehow it's cracking? Bullshit. I don't believe it. I do not believe it. Even with that heavy ass wagon on it, I don't believe it, because you'd have thousands or hundreds of people coming into this museum every single day. Some of them are some obese motherfuckers, okay? And you're telling me that the wagon is a wagon caused it to crack? I call BS. Ken's death is kind of silly. He runs back to save a horse and then gets bitten by a fucking spawning zombie, and then the horse whacks him in the belly just to add some dumb scenes, but then some really powerful scenes. The scene where Maggie breaks the news to Tammy and Earl, really like the whole Maggie assassination plot where she ends up executing Gregory. Fucking love all that. Rick going to the sanctuary and being this kind of hero, and seeing Rick now much older, much wiser, and the whole thing with the bridge and the whole bridge setup. I love all of that. I thought it was a solid ass premiere. It really does set up this first half, or these first 5 episodes, I suppose, of this season. So I can't fault it too much. There is some bad stuff in there, do not get me wrong, but I like it. I like it overall. It's a high-ish 7. So, the bridge. Where do I put that? I give it a 1. No, I'm joking. Hang on, I just need to pull up me notes. I also gave it a 7. So, look, it's a good-ass episode. Yeah, it is. So, but it does feel a little bit like a setup episode, is the only thing I can say. Now, is that bad? No, not necessarily. So you of course have it's been a few weeks now, the bridge is getting built. We have a few hostilities though between some of the saviors and some of the non-saviors. And of course by the end of the episode, Justin gets randomly assassinated by some mysterious Oceanside single ladies. So essentially what this episode is, we have the bridge, we're building the bridge, but there's tension. You of course have Aaron losing his arm, fucking really sad scene, really powerful scene too. Things are moving, right? This episode does feel like setup, but there are still lots of like major plot beats that happen, like Aaron losing his arm, the whole Justin murder thing, Daryl and Justin kind of coming at odds, the saviors and the survivors and the saviors almost clashing. Well, actually, no, that's in the next scene, I think. Yeah. There's some lovely scenes with like Ezekiel and Carol as well, and their relationship was obviously revealed in the last episode. But yeah, I feel like they were a really good couple. And obviously the stuff with Anne and Gabriel feels a little bit out of nowhere, but it's okay, I suppose. Their little romance, it's kind of I get it. I understand why they would be together. It's not totally devoid of logic. Then we have warning signs. So warning signs, I actually give a 8 out of 10? I gave it an 8 out of 10. Why did I do that? No. Why did I do that? So I feel like this episode like really does boil a lot of these sort of key moments together, and I think it's generally like a really, it's an underrated episode, but there's like a lot of like really great scenes in here. So you have obviously the stuff with the murder mystery stuff I really like. Sorry, I'm a little bit floundered here because I'm trying to read all my notes quickly. So the murder mystery stuff I really enjoy. And the scene where obviously a rat gets kidnapped and Daryl and Maggie find it's the Oceanside women killing her and they just walk away and let her be executed is fucking brutal. I love all that. You obviously have the stuff with Rick and Michonne, and obviously they're heading back to camp and they're talking about the Constitution and that sort of set up that obviously this becomes a major part of the season later on. For that was pretty good. The sort of big the boiling point where all the saviors and the allies or saviors or survivors, whatever, the coalition, whatever you want to call it, where they're all about to boil and it's all violence is about to come. That's all cool. Maggie and her sort of eye for revenge, and heading off to execute Negan. Or is that in the next episode? No, it's not. Oh God, I'm floundered a bit here. Anyway, yeah, I like this episode a lot. I think all the murder mystery stuff is pretty cool. I like all the Alden and Rick, that scene I really like too. Sorry, my notes were very bad for this episode, so I'm a little confused. Rick kind of being a bit of a detective too, asking Gabriel and all that. Yeah, I mean, generally, I think it's a pretty good episode. I'm questioning 8 though. I feel like it should be a 7. But I'm going to go with what I put. I'm going to go with my guts, what I put at the moment. I really like that episode. So then we got The Obliged, which I gave a 6 out of 10. I don't know. I feel like these scores are the wrong way round. Is it possible I fucked up? It's possible I fucked up here. I do apologise. What did I write here? Uh-oh. Okay, yeah. So part of the reason I don't like this episode is the whole like Rick and Daryl's like fight feels a little bit forced to me. It does. They set it up in the last episode, but them falling down the big pit feels a bit silly. It feels a bit comical. I'm not a huge fan of that. I do like the scene where he's like, brother, grab my hand. That's cool, but how we get there is a bit silly. The shootout with Jed and his people. Jed comes back with one gun and nothing else, and there's a big shootout. They cut away to it. I get it. And the ending's really powerful. Obviously, Rick getting impaled, but it is just a cliffhanger for the next episode. I'm not huge on that. Obviously the ending with the last episode with the saviors leaving, I really like that ending with the tomato and the sort of symbolism there. I forgot to mention that at the last episode. I've like mixed the notes up for these 2 episodes, so I do apologize. This part of the video has been a bit messy. I people say I should write a script, but the problem is I sit here and write a script for 3 hours and get around to it, and then I have to edit it. I'll never have these videos will be once a month, so you have to just put up with my rambling sometimes, okay? If you want more of these videos. If you want a more edited version, you can find another channel. Haha, get out. Yeah. So, also I hate all the stuff with the heaps. I just fucking don't care for it. Jadis is annoying, where she's like, Gabriel, I'm going to kill you. And Gabriel's like, oh, I forgive you for killing me. And I was like, oh, I can't kill you anymore, Gabriel. I just can't do it. You got to go fast. Go fast. I've got to go fast. I just... Ugh. Cringe, shit, don't love it. Jadis, boring. Gabriel has been reduced to a hunk of what he was. So, yeah. I don't like all that stuff either. So, poopy episode. No, it's not. It's still a good episode, but too much poopy stuff in there for me to give it anything higher. I didn't mix the scores round. I was true. But I feel like an 8's too high for that one. But again, I'm just going to have to go with my gut. That's what I put in the moment, so I must have really enjoyed that episode. What comes after? They kill off Rick Grimes too. No. What comes after is a fucking amazing, stellar piece of art, alright? This is a great send-off for Rick's character. And if it was the final episode ever, I wouldn't be too opposed to it, okay? Oh, sorry, if it was Rick's final episode and he were to die, I wouldn't have been too opposed to it, the way he goes out. Now, I'm not giving it a 10. I'm giving it a 9, alright? But I definitely think it's a high 9, okay? It's closer to a 10 than it is an 8. This episode is just filled with fucking amazing scenes. You, of course, have the return of Shane, the return of Herschel, and I think what would have made this episode a 10 is if they brought either Glenn or Carl back. Now, I know there was probably an issue with... I think there was an issue with getting Stephen Yeun back, and I could be fair and say, well, fair enough, man. But Sasha just feels like the wrong choice. I kind of, in my head, I justify it a little bit by saying, well, Sasha was sort of most impartial. She kind of was the optimist turned into the pessimist turned into the optimist near the end. So in a sense, I kind of like it being her, but I feel like she should be not the final person he talks to, right? I feel like it should be someone like Carl. Really, they should have brought Chandler Riggs back for this episode. I feel where they have a final scene where Carl kind of talks to his dad and it's like, you go, there's still everyone else. There's still, I'm your family, but I'm gone. And I think that could have been a really fucking powerful scene, man. Why couldn't they get Chandler Riggs back? They already fired the poor kid. They could have given him one more episode, paid him for one more episode, just have a nice little cameo scene. And that's what kind of ruins the episode a little bit for me. It's not a huge nitpick. It is a nitpick. It's not a huge deal, but it just would have made the episode more perfect. The Shane scene is fucking brilliant. The Herschel scene is heartbreaking. And Rick's just final battle and then the scene with the bridge is fucking amazing. The Negan and Maggie stuff I really like too. I wish they stuck with it, but in a vacuum, that scene is great too, where Maggie finally realizes Negan is no longer Negan, and Rick's kind of way did kind of work, right? Is reducing him to this and having him being a blubbering mess is a much more powerful fate than just killing him. So, yeah, I like this episode a lot. It's a 9, okay? A high 9. But if they had that damn Carl scene or a Glenn scene, I feel like Carl would have been better than Glenn personally, but if they had that Carl scene, I would have given it a 10, okay? I might even be my favorite episode. It would have made it just chef's kiss. But as it stands, it's still a great episode. So 906, I give a 6 out of 10. So this is Who Are You Now? So a lot of this is just the setup for the 6-year time skip, of course. Now we have a 6-year time skip. Crazy. Now, people have debated whether the 6-year time skip really worked. I think for the most part it's okay. It does feel a little... There's some characters, like Michonne... Michonne looks younger in some scenes. No, Rosita looks younger in some scenes. I feel like some characters just don't feel like they've aged, okay? And that's one of the problems with it. But, they aged up all the actresses, and I think it was definitely worth it to have Judith actually be older, because they need a character like that. They need like a legacy character, I feel, a child character like that. So I like the fact that they did the skip, although it does come with some problems, of course. So we pick off from the final episode, the final scene with Judith Grimes in that episode is also a perfect way to end the episode too. Rick going off the helicopter and then the Judith Grimes scene. Fucking love that scene too. Although tiny bit cringe with the hat. Like, it's the fact that she puts the hat on. Like, how the fuck did she lose the hat? Like, it was like, we need you to put the hat on your head. Okay, but why is the hat on the floor? Would she just take her hat off when she starts shooting? I don't know. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Enough on that. What did I put that episode again? Yeah, a 6. So, yeah, it is a bit set-uppy. Magna and her group, of course, we're learning about them. Sorry, just clearing my voice. And, of course, they get interviewed by the council. They're not allowed in. And then Magna's being a bit silly. She has a little knife and Michonne's roasting the fuck out of them. And then, of course, eventually, later, Magna hands over the little knife. And she's like, yeah, I'm so sorry, let us stay. And then Michonne has a little bit of a character. She's like, yeah, you guys can go to the hilltop. All right, let's go to the hilltop instead. You have then the setup, of course, with Rosita and Eugene. They're heading off to do they're straight into the Whisperer stuff, which I really love too. Oh, the fact that Rosita and Gabriel are a couple kind of comes out of nowhere and a bit random, but whatever. So obviously Rosita and Eugene set up this little radio transmitter thing on the water tower, and of course the Whisperers arrive. Ooh! So I like all the setup for that. I think that's all done really well, and the stuff with, Doodar's group. What's his name? Magnus group is okay too. I like all that stuff, and I think their group they've definitely adapted them much better than they were in the comics. Because in the comics, I feel like they just barely have any character. Like Magnus just there, and she's pretty indifferent. And Yumiko is like, girl with the arrow. Kelly and Connie are just nothing, and Luke is just dude who dies. Stradivarius. So Stradivarius, I give. Oh God. I need to look for this. Hang on a second. Stradivarius, which is what, episode 7? I give a 6 out of 10. Okay. So yeah, similar score. So, all the stuff with the Whisperers, obviously Rosita running away and all that, great. This sort of ambiguity, the fucking horror there is injecting some real horror back into the show. Then we of course have Michonne and Magnus group heading towards the hilltop, and they talk about like Bernie, this other group member, which they mentioned last episode too, and of course they find him. I thought that scene was pretty good too, as well. You obviously have Henry and Daryl heading to the I forgot in the previous episode, of course, you have Carol killing Jed and his group and burning them. That seems a bit goofy, but for the like, how did she pour gasoline? That was in this episode, but how did she pour gasoline over all these people and none of them woke up? That was a bit silly. But apart from that, I like all the Carol Henry stuff as well, and seeing how Carol's now like a new mom to Henry. So yeah, in Stradivarius anyway, obviously Henry goes to Daryl, wanting Daryl to kind of chaperone and look after Henry when he goes to be a blacksmith at the hilltop. Yeah, and then they pretty much straight away they head off to go find Eugene at the end of the episode, which is pretty funny. Daryl's like, "Yeah, I'll be back. Don't worry. See you later." So yeah, overall, very very good episode. A lot of brilliant setup for the Whisperers. I do think there's a little like lull part here and there. Maybe I should give this one a 7. I'm actually generally reconsidering it, but I'm gonna go with what I put originally. It just gets a 6 for now. Anyway, yeah, moving on. So, Evolution. I give this one a solid 8 out of 10. I thought this episode was powerful. It's the climax to all the build-up in the previous episodes, with all this fucking weird mystery shit that's going on with these talking walkers, which of course are revealed to be the Whisperers. And I think Jesus' death works. Now, Jesus is a character I just don't care for, so when he died, I actually was pretty happy with his death. I generally wasn't that mad, because Jesus' character is not that interesting in the show. In the comics, he's way better. I fucking love him in the comics, and they just butcher him in the show to the point where I just don't care about him. So when he dies, he's a biggish character, it's a big reveal, and it's a nice way to reveal the Whisperers, right? Just suddenly executing this character. It raises the threat levels of the Whisperers. This guy that we've known for so long, who's fucking an expert at hand-to-hand combat, just gets taken out like by that, only because he has no idea that these things are obviously human. He just assumes it's a walker, so he's careless when he's killing them, because he's killed walkers so many times, so he doesn't expect one to duck and stab him. I think that's a fucking good scene. I will defend Jesus' death to my death, okay? He deserves to be crucified. No. Could they have definitely done better things with Jesus? Fuck yes, of course. But they already ruined him so royally anyway, so I just don't care when he gets stabbed and killed. Yeah, so you have Michonne arriving to the hilltop and having her little talks with all the people. Some of that stuff's a bit, seeing the hostilities between the communities. It's interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, all the stuff with them I liked, and of course you have them trying, Daryl and Jesus and Aaron rescuing Eugene, which was all good too. So, overall, I love it. I think this episode is great. I give this one an 8. I think it's perfect. And then the one following it, Adaptation, is also brilliant. I'm going to give this one an 8 as well. I think it's a perfect follow-up to the last episode, whereas like this episode was a cliffhanger, but not like a bad cliffhanger, and I think this episode, Adaptation, just follows up really fucking nicely from the last, where, of course in this episode as well, Negan gets free. The Gabriel, the things open. So Negan goes on his little fucking journey. So yeah, in this episode adaptation, of course, you have the group trying to head back to Hilltop, and they of course get Lydia. They find Lydia, and the way that they begin to take out the Whisperers is really brutal, with like shooting them with the crossbows, and then when they scream, they just get eaten by the walkers. I like all that. And then you have the stuff with Henry and Lydia kind of beginning to talk, and Daryl using Henry to be able to get to Lydia and exchange information from Lydia. Fucking brutal. But also feels in character and, you know, makes sense. And Negan obviously escapes, and Judith's like, go on then, motherfucker, you leave. And then Negan just does not have a great time, and sort of seeing Negan being like, there's fucking nothing for him. He goes to the sanctuary, it's just gone. Yeah, I like all that stuff too. I think it's really good for Negan. And then you have the funeral for Jesus, and then suddenly Alden and Luke are obviously out there looking for peeps. And then, of course, they get caught by Alpha. Trail ends here. Great end to the episode. Brilliant fucking build-up. Honestly, adaptation was pretty good. And I like all the Negan stuff, too. Where normally, I don't... I get a bit iffy with Negan later on. I think he kind of is a bit ruined for me in Season 10. But I think Season 9, Negan is very solid. Yeah. Anyway, Episode 10. Now this, I gave a 7. Now, I will say the flashbacks to the Baltimore, Maryland stuff with, obviously, Alpha, and her daughter. I understand what they go for. Obviously, Lydia's a faulty narrator, and I think they explain it pretty well, but something about those flashbacks I've just never liked. I don't know, maybe it's just the lighting or something, but we go back and forth. I think they're needed to some degree, but I feel like they could have been, I don't know, sharpened up a little bit, to maybe written a little bit differently. I do kind of like the faulty narrator, but it does confuse things a bit for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being an idiot. So, yeah, you have the more interrogation of Lydia, obviously, and then Henry, of course, frees Lydia, and she almost kills Henry, but then she's like, yo, put me back in the cell. So all the stuff with Lydia and Henry I thought was really cute. I like all that stuff. It's pretty good. And then kind of Lydia breaking down and telling Daryl the truth, basically, about her mother and the abuse, and we learn that she's obviously being abused and stuff. Yeah, I mean, all that's really fucking powerful. I really love how they bring out Henry and Lydia's characters in this episode. I thought all of that was very good. What else do we have? We have some of the stuff with Magna and her group. Obviously, they go out searching for Alden and Luke. It does feel like, okay, Alden and Luke went out to search for them, and now they're going out to search for Luke. I mean, it does feel a bit repetitive, but whatevs. And then, of course, at the end, we have Alpha's bold-ass head marching to the hilltop, which is a powerful way to end the episode, so give it props for that. So, there you have it. That is Omega, which I give a solid 7 out of 10. I think it's a pretty solid episode. So then we have Bounty, which is episode, I just need to double check, episode 11, yeah? I give this one an 8 out of 10. I think this episode was fucking really solid too. So, of course, you have Alpha arriving at the gates, and the conflict of this episode is, do we hand over Lydia? And they decide to hand over Lydia, but of course Lydia is nowhere to be found because Henry and Lydia have escaped, and of course, eventually Lydia accepts that she has to go back to her mother, and she kisses Henry, and she goes back to her mother, only to be slapped by her mother. Fucking powerful. And of course Henry dips the fuck out, and he leaves. So all that's good, but all the stuff leading up to it, of course, with Alpha showing up at the gates, the way that Alpha speaks, everything about it I fucking love, and how Daryl's kind of forced to be the leader there, because, I don't know, Tara's useless. they really do Tara dirty, I feel, on this show. So Daryl comes out, he talks to her. They have a conversation. There's a baby. Alpha leaves the baby, and the fight for the baby, where Connie goes out to save the baby. Fucking love that scene so much. Connie runs, and she's deaf, and she's in this cornfield. Actual fucking horror. That scene is so tense. I fucking love it. This season really injected the horror back into The Walking Dead. And I don't think it's at the same heights as some of the earlier seasons, but Jesus Christ, the storytelling in this season is great too. And everything about this episode, it is just like, it is kind of one plot point. The one conflict of this episode is, do we hand over Lydia? But they add a few extra things in there. And this episode just, oh man, I really love it. I think it's really underrated. God, Bounty. What a great fucking episode, okay? Crazy. Anyway, moving on. We've got Guardians. Now, Guardians, of course, Henry instantly gets caught. And I wish that we had a few more scenes of Henry like sneaking up on the Whisperers and stuff, because it just kind of abruptly get caught by Beta, and the Beta's reveal feels a little iffy. You have obviously the people challenging Alpha, and she beheads some people, like showing how crazy and brutal Alpha is. Something about that's a bit iffy, but I mean overall, very very fucking solid episode 2. So you have obviously Henry being there, and both Connie and Daryl pursuing and to try and save Henry. And of course, by the end of the episode, they use the Whisperer's own tactics to lure some zombies to the Whisperer's camp, which I do really like that fucking scene. It's pretty clever what Daryl and Connie do. And of course, Henry and Lydia come with Daryl and Connie, and they all escape. Very, very nice. So you have Michonne being mad at Gabriel and the stuff with the council and all that, which and Aaron kind of switches. He's like, yeah, I agree with Michonne now. I was like, okay, whatever, Aaron, see you then. Which I get. I understand why he does, though. But, yeah. All the stuff with the Whisperer stuff, all the Whisperer stuff, stuff with the Whisperer camp I like. The Gabriel visiting Rosita, and, there's the whole baby thing as well, which happened last time. So they talking about their baby situation. That whole plot line's like fine, but it's just it's a little not forgettable. It's just not worth mentioning. It's fine. It's not amazing. It's not bad. It's just meh, and it's kind of hard to write home about it. But yeah, overall, I think this episode is pretty good. I do wish, like I said, there was some more build up to Henry like following the Whisperers, but yeah, I think overall it was okay. So we're moving the story forward as well, which I like. So then we move over to Choke Point. So, of course, Daryl and Lydia and Henry and Connie decide to use this building that Connie is familiar with to be able to use it as like a choke point to fight the Whisperers that are obviously tailing them, and they're led by Beta. I think all the fight scenes are fucking brutal. I like Beta just smashing through the wall like a big ape. The pushing him down the elevator shaft is I think a pretty smart way to get rid of him but not kill him. How he survived that fall is a bit silly, but I mean, I'm willing to let it go, to be honest. The stuff with the dying Whisperer that I did a profile on recently, and the fact that guy joins the herd and then just gets shot. There's so many great things about this episode. Now, it's very close to an 8. It's just a few small things that I wasn't a huge fan of. What was it? Is this the Highwaymen stuff? Yeah. Okay, this is it. I am not a fan of the Highwaymen stuff. It's too cringe for me, okay? Now, the Highwaymen are this goofy-ass fucking... They like wearing like Civil War outfits, and they wear cowboy hats, and they have horses. So dumb, and they write a fucking... They're like the corniest group. They are so corny, and the group that they are against is the Corny Kingdom group. Ugh! Oh, I forgot about the movie fight. The movie where they get the projector bulb in one of the last episodes. I like that little plot point. I think that was cool. That's a good example of doing like a little bit of a corny, light story, but still keeping it realistic, because it makes sense. Like, I can believe that they would want to risk this for a movie bulb. You know, it's just something special. So to get the projection bulb, I can believe that. I can't believe the Highwaymen. They write a fucking letter to be like, oh, we're gonna poll the roads, right? Fair enough. They look goofy. They sound goofy. They're led by some fucking like dude who looks like he came from, I don't know, a bar. and then they're convinced to guard the roads because of a movie. A movie. Do you want to watch a movie? He's like, wait, you serious? It's cringe, okay? It's just cringe. Now, could it have worked? Maybe. Could I believe that these guys would not, like, would basically fold their cards to see a couple movies or a movie? Maybe. But why does, maybe like Ozzy, right? One guy. But why does the whole group agree to it? What, they just believe so much in Ozzy as a leader? They're like these fucking, like, literal pirates, essentially. These pirates of the road. They all fall under one leader, and they're all okay with the leader accepting that we're not going to tax these people. We're going to, in exchange for a fucking movie. What if one of the members hates movies? It's like, oh, no, wait. And also, they don't even agree what movie it is. They just drop the scene. It's cringe. I don't like it. It's a small thing. I know some people really love that fucking scene. I just don't get it, okay? Not for me. I think it's not realistic, okay? Think back to season 1 of The Walking Dead and think of that scene, right? If they just injected that scene into season 1 of The Walking Dead, it would feel out of place, right? And that's how I feel about it. It's out of place. I feel that way with a lot of the Kingdom stuff, to be honest, but especially that scene. Cringe. Yeah, so Choke Point, I love all the stuff with Beta and fighting Beta. I don't like the Highwayman stuff. That's all it really comes down to. But it's still a pretty good episode, so I still give it a 7. It might be higher, though, if it were for none of that cringe Highwayman shit. Anyway, moving on, we of course have Scars, which is episode 14. And this episode is They Kill Kids, Not Very Fun 2. No, I'm joking. This episode is a 9 out of 10, okay? Fucking love this episode. I like The Walking Dead when it likes to do morally grey stuff. And I think the way that they flash back to the stuff in the past towards the stuff in the present, I think is so well done. The flashbacks are completely justified, and of course we've had all this build up with these scars and knowing about this weird ambiguous event that happened which caused Michonne to shut off Alexandria, and this episode makes it make sense. I can believe this event caused Michonne to kind of do that little bit of a 180, right? Where she's like, fuck that, we're closing our gates, not letting anyone in, keep the borders closed, right? I fucking get it. This episode is brutal in so many ways. Michonne, after losing Rick, she's fucking pregnant, she's alone, she's just looking for him, and finally, she finds something to catch onto, an old friend from college, someone that she was close with, someone that got her through the death of her mother. You know, this is a fucking perfect person to not replace Rick, but to kind of somewhat fill that void. Great. And then she's got all these kids and they need protection, and they're friends for Judith, and Judith's going to sleepovers, and they're like hunters, and everything's feeling like a family again, and Michonne's finally feeling happy. Something is fulfilling her after the, supposed death of Rick. And then this fucking person who she trusts kidnaps the one sort of remaining part of Rick that she has left, kidnaps Judith, as well as some other forgettable children from Alexandria. Not Gracie, though. Gracie was spared. So Michonne goes out to find them, obviously with Daryl. Now, is it a little silly that she doesn't have more people? Yes, it is a bit dumb. Why like Scott and Aaron and all that going too? Especially like Scott. I guess Scott doesn't really give a fuck about that random kid that he stole from the sanctuary, but whatever. It would have made way more sense if there was more people going after them, or if they just explained it like there was multiple search parties and Daryl and Michonne were the ones that happened to come across them. I mean, it would be a little convenient, but I at least that would like clear that plot point up a little bit. But anyway, yeah. So Michonne, of course, finds the kids. She gets fucking battered and bruised by these children. So whacked with a board by Jocelyn. She's forced to kill Jocelyn and tries to convince these kids to come with her. And then, of course, they give her no other option. She's forced to fucking slaughter children. Oh my god. But, of course, she has no other choice. It's the perfect fucking moral ambiguous shit that I love from The Walking Dead. This is what I want more of. This is what season 10 and 11 was missing. And this fucking episode is so powerful. And the fact that they cut away as she's killing the walkers in the present, just, oh god, so tasteful as well. It didn't feel like it was gore or like, controversial for controversial sake. It felt justified. And I think all the stuff in the present is fucking wonderful. I used to feel like the stuff in the present was kind of shit, but no, it contrasts so well with the stuff in the past, where Judith just doesn't feel, she ends up going obviously off to help Henry and Lydia, who obviously arrive at Alexandria at the start of the episode, and Henry has the scar on his leg, or he says it's going to have a horrible scar, and then of course Judith goes out to help them, and then Michonne saves Judith, and she cuts herself, and Michonne's like, yeah, there's a cool scene where Judith's like, do you reckon it'll leave a scar? And Michonne's like, no, maybe, but it's okay if it does. Is the symbolism a little on this? Nah, I think it all makes sense though, so I like it. And the final conversation that Judith has with Michonne, where Judith's like, we say that we found, we like to care for people. Like, when did we stop caring about Maggie and the King and Daryl? And it's heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking scene where Michonne is finally convinced to actually, yeah, we're going to go to this fair. We're going to help our friends. It's the sort of end of Michonne's character arc of, being this isolationist, but we contrast it with the reason why she became an isolationist in the first place. And that's why I think this is one of my favorite episodes. Well, I think it probably is my favorite episode of season 9. I might, well, other than what comes after, obviously. Powerful fucking episode. Wait, hang on. It's in the wrong bracket. It's meant to be a 9. What am I doing? Sorry, it's meant to be up there. It's a 9. I actually might put it above what comes after. I'm not sure. It's hard to compare these two. But I think that Scars is the second best episode, at the very least, of season 9. I fucking loved it. So, we've got episode 15, The Calm Before. Now, of course, great episode. We have the fair stuff, all the happy stuff, haha, all the communities are together. You have the highwaymen being like, ooh, there's some weird stuff on the road. You have Hilda and Miles, of course. They open with this hilltop couple, and I really like that opener. It's pretty cool, just showing these minor characters and their life, and then they're killed as they head to the kingdom. I like that as an opener, and of course you have Carol and Daryl and all that. They go out and they get stopped by the Whisperers, and the Whisperers. Alpha shows Daryl the herd, and of course then you have Alpha infiltrating the kingdom, and the sort of final confrontation between Alpha and Lydia. I really love that. And then of course, finally, you have them going towards the Pike and the Pike deaths. Now, I think the Pike deaths are all brilliant, and I think from a story and from a character standpoint, it makes sense why Alpha would behead Henry, but I think this is my view of it. I personally feel like Ezekiel would have been a better death. I stand by that. The reason being is because Ezekiel has literally just brought all these communities together. He's got them to sign a charter to to agree that an attack on one is an attack on all. He's brought them all together. He's part of the reason why this has happened. He's designed this fair. Everything he dreamt of has came true. The kingdom is finally going to get help it needs, or it's getting the supplies it needs, etc., etc. It would have been such a bittersweet death if he was beheaded here. Now, I think in the comics it doesn't work, but in the show, they had all the setup for it. And I know Kirkman said he wasn't a huge fan of he regretted killing Ezekiel, but they could have made it work. Like they could have made Morgan's death in the comic work, but just have it happen later on in season 8, right? Where Morgan then tells Rick, spare Negan, etc., etc., and Rick puts him in the cell that Morgan literally built. Like that could have really worked as a way to repurpose Morgan's death. And I know Kirkman also doesn't like Morgan's death in the comics. He regrets that too. Making Ezekiel's death in from the comics work would have been to do that, right? He's brought all the communities together. He's brought, it's a bittersweet end for him there. And also, we're not just torturing Carol with another dead kid and basically repeating a story arc we've already done. And I think all the stuff in season 10, nothing good came from Henry's death. Now, could something good have come from his death? I think so, but season 10 wasn't it, is all I'm trying to say. So I think if I was to rewrite it, I'd kill Ezekiel. But I'm not really hurting the score of the episode that much for that. I think the Pike scene is very powerful, and it's a really good scene, but it doesn't make the whole episode for me. That's all it really comes down to. So that's why it's not any higher than a 7. I think all the fair stuff is good, but some of the flip-floppy, where we flash back to the stuff at the kingdom, and then we have the stuff at night in the Whisperer camp, obviously, with all them getting surrounded. Some of that felt a little icky for me, and Sadiq randomly being tied to a tree just so he could tell the speech, and also something about the speech, like where Sadiq's like, they all fought back, and we have the scene where they all fight back. I don't know how I feel about it. And some days I'm okay with it, but when I was rewatching it on this one rewatch, I found it a bit like pointless. Not pointless, I don't know. Just like showing us that. I don't know what it really. Yeah. And also the logistics. How did Alpha... I want to know how Alpha got all these... She somehow snuck all these people out of the community, out of the kingdom, alive, and took them to a random barn. How? How did she take these people hostage and kept them to this barn? Because how it happens in the comics, I felt like she just beheaded these people in the kingdom and just like stuffed the heads in a bag. That's how I kind of got the impression from the comics. Or maybe I'm misremembering. But I don't know. That would have made sense if she just cornered these people, beheaded them, hid their body in like a fucking storeroom, and took the head out. But somehow we're meant to believe that she somehow got all these people hostage and took them out of the kingdom into this random barn just to execute them anyway. So the logistics of that scene are a bit silly. But overall, very, very powerful episode. I give it a 7. And then finally, we're coming to the end of this video. Sorry for all my rambles. We're getting there though. We have The Storm. Now, initially, I thought, when I kind of thought about this episode before I rewatched it, I thought it'd be like low, like a 3 or a 4, because I felt like this episode doesn't really justify itself that much. But I think that I actually ended up going with a 6, because there is some stuff I kind of like about it. Okay, I think seeing a new environment is cool. Seeing them in the snow is a little bit gimmicky, but it's something new, like aesthetically. And so I like that. And I like Daryl killing the zombie with the icicle. All of that's pretty cool. And there's a little snow fight at the end. It's kind of cringe, but it's also kind of cute. So I give it credit. It's a cute scene. What I don't like about this episode is the Carol and Ezekiel, kind of the breakdown of the relationship. And I understand Ezekiel kind of blaming Daryl and being like, yeah, I don't want you being there, because he doesn't obviously want Daryl to be that emotional cushion for Carol. He's not saying that he thinks Daryl's gonna fuck Carol or something. He just doesn't want Daryl there because he doesn't want Carol to seek comfort in Daryl. He wants Carol to seek comfort in him because he wants to save their relationship. It's the last thing he has left from that life in the kingdom. Obviously, the kingdom's died of old age, which I'm not huge on. Again, this is why I want Ezekiel to die, because it wouldn't have been powerful Ezekiel died, but he died. But in the process, the kingdom survives, the place, I know they have the whole thing where they say the kingdom isn't a place, it's the people, but that's some giga cringe. I don't like that shit. Anyway, yeah. So the whole Daryl stuff, I understand why Ezekiel does that, and the breakdown of Ezekiel and Carol's relationship is fucking sad and fucking heartbreaking, but I think it's well done, so I gotta give it props for that. The Negan stuff, Negan's hilarious in this episode, I will say that. The father, not the father, and then of course when he goes off, when they're heading towards Aaron's house and he heads off to save Judith, I like that stuff. I don't like Lydia putting her arm to the zombie. Zombie bite me, and then she's like, Carol, kill me with the spear, just do it, just get it over with. This whole battle's because of me. Henry would be alive if it wasn't for me. Fucking that's what I think of that plotline. Cringe. I don't like all the fucking suicide baiting shit. It's all shit. And Lydia's character goes downhill from here. She's nothing without Henry. Part of the reason as well why they shouldn't have killed Henry, because they adapt. Why adapt the first half of Carl's story and not adapt the second half? It's silly. Just don't adapt it and adapt something different. That's why I don't like Henry's death as well. But yeah, so I don't like all that shit with Lydia. That was get some mega cringe. And then crossing the border, ooh, risque. What it is what it is. And kind of ending the season as well in the sanctuary, kind of coming full circle where they obviously stay off at the sanctuary in the first episode too. I think that's kind of neat, but it's a minor thing, but it's kind of neat at least. But yeah, so I give The Storm a 6, which I think is fair. It is a low 6. It's very close to a 5, because this episode, I don't think entirely justifies itself, to be honest, but it's a nice lull, I guess, from the last episode, so I think I've been pretty fair with it. So there we have it. That is season 8 and 9 ranked in terms of their scores. So we've got an extra one in 3, The King, the Widow, and Rick in 3 out of 10. And then we have a few in 4 out of 10 here, And we've added a couple to the 9 as well. 2 episodes made it into the 9. Nothing made it into the 10, though, this time. But, it is what it is. I need to do my, top 10 episodes. I think all these episodes are in my top 10, because I don't think anything else is getting in the 9s or 10s. Maybe with the exception of one episode, possibly. One of these episodes might get into the 9. We'll see upon my rewatch, but none of these, no more than one is getting in the 9 and 10. So maybe I should make a list with my definitive top 10. Because how many have we got here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we got more than 10. So yeah, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should. But anyway, that is it. We will be doing the next part. Will be on season 10. Probably on its own, just because we've obviously got all the COVID bonus episodes to talk about too. And then we'll probably do the final part on season 11. But like I said at the start of the video, if you'd like to see one of these for the Fear the Walking Dead episodes, let me know. I've rewatched seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 recently. Although it has been a while since I rewatched season 1 and 2. So maybe I should have probably done it earlier, but hey ho, that's how it goes. I watched them within like the last 3 months, which I think is probably enough. And I wrote a few notes, so hopefully that will help. But yeah, if you'd like to see this on Fear the Walking Dead, then let me know, because it's probably going to be a while until I finish season 10, because again, I have a particular way of watching them. I like to sit down, I like to watch. Sometimes I watch with someone else, you know. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me why I'm wrong, and be mad. Be mad in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.